You're just a washerwoman. What could you possibly know about business?" The white banker slammed his fist on the mahogany desk, his face twisted with disgust as he looked at the black woman standing before him in 1906. Sarah Breedlove had walked into his Denver bank with a business plan, asking for a loan to expand her hair care company. Her hands, still rough from years of washing other people's clothes, held documents outlining her vision for a national beauty empire. The man's laughter echoed through the marble halls as he dismissed her with a wave of his hand. If you think you've seen incredible business transformations, wait until you hear what this washerwoman accomplished. If you enjoy this kind of story about pioneers who changed America against impossible odds, subscribe to the channel now and leave a comment saying, "Remember Madam C.J. Walker," so that name is never forgotten. But Sarah didn't leave defeated that day. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, looked that banker dead in the eye, and said something that would haunt him for years. "You'll regret this conversation, sir. Mark my words. What happened next would prove that the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate a black woman with a dream and the determination to make it reality." The year was 1906, and America was a nation where black women occupied the lowest rung of society's ladder. They could work as maids, laundresses, or field hands, but entrepreneurs, business owners? The very idea was laughable to most white Americans. Sarah had every reason to accept this reality. Born on a Louisiana cotton plantation just 2 years after the Civil War ended, she had been an orphan by age 7, married by 14, and widowed by 20 with a young daughter to raise alone. For years, she had bent over steaming wash tubs, scrubbing clothes until her knuckles bled, earning barely enough to keep herself and her daughter Lelia alive. Her own hair had begun falling out from stress, poor nutrition, and harsh chemical treatments. She was, by every measure society used, a failure. A black woman with no education, no money, no connections, and no prospects. But inside that Denver bank, facing ridicule and rejection, Sarah carried something more powerful than the banker's prejudice. A vision that had come to her in a dream. A mysterious African man had appeared to her in her sleep, showing her a formula for hair growth that would not only restore her own hair, but transform the lives of millions of black women across America. Within 4 years, that same washerwoman would become the wealthiest black woman in America. By 1910, she had built $1 million empire that employed thousands of women across the country. The banker who laughed at her? He would later beg for her business. But by then, Sarah Breedlove, now known as Madam C.J. Walker, had banks competing for the privilege of holding her money. Her rags to riches story wasn't just about business success. It was about revolutionizing an entire industry, creating opportunities for thousands of black women, and proving that entrepreneurship could be a weapon against oppression. But the journey to that moment in the bank had been paved with unimaginable tragedy, heartbreak, and the mysterious dream that would change everything. December 1910. The headline in the New York Times business section made history, though few understood its significance at the time. Negro woman becomes America's first female self-made millionaire. The article was buried on page 12, as if the editors couldn't quite believe what they were reporting. Madam C.J. Walker had achieved the impossible. In a nation where the average black family earned $300 per year, she was pulling in over $1,000 per week. Her Walker Manufacturing Company employed over 3,000 women across the United States and Caribbean. White business magazines that had refused to acknowledge her existence were now studying her marketing strategies. The woman they had dismissed as just another Negro hair straightener peddler had built the largest black-owned business in America. But how had this happened? How had a woman born into slavery, orphaned as a child, and widowed in poverty managed to outmaneuver seasoned white businessmen with decades of experience and unlimited access to capital? The answer lay not just in her revolutionary hair care formula, but in her understanding of something the white business establishment had completely overlooked: the economic power of black women. While white entrepreneurs focused on serving white customers, Walker had identified an untapped market of 4 million black women desperate for hair care solutions. These women had been ignored by mainstream beauty companies, forced to use dangerous lye-based products that often caused permanent scalp damage. Walker didn't just create better products, she created an entire ecosystem that empowered Black women to become financially independent. Her business model was revolutionary for its time. Instead of traditional retail stores, Walker built a network of door-to-door saleswomen, Walker agents, who earned commissions selling her products directly to customers in their communities. These weren't just sales jobs. They were entrepreneurial opportunities that allowed Black women to escape domestic service and factory work. A successful Walker agent could earn more in a month than most Black women made in a year. The white business establishment was baffled and threatened. How was a Black woman with no formal business education outperforming companies with Harvard-trained executives? They accused her of using voodoo marketing and spreading dangerous ideas about Negro women's capabilities. Some white competitors tried to steal her formulas, others attempted to undercut her prices, but nothing worked. What they didn't understand was that Walker wasn't just selling hair care products. She was selling dignity, self-respect, and economic independence to a community that had been systematically denied all three. Every jar of her hair grower, every bottle of her wonderful hair pomade, carried with it a message of Black female empowerment that resonated far beyond mere commerce. By 1910, Walker had offices in Denver, Pittsburgh, and Indianapolis. Her face appeared on advertisements in Black newspapers from coast to coast. She owned real estate, employed lawyers and accountants, and had become a major philanthropist funding Black schools and organizations. But her success had come at a tremendous personal cost, and her journey to this moment had been marked by tragedies that would have broken most people. The little girl who had picked cotton for pennies a day was now dining with presidents and challenging America's most powerful businessmen. But this transformation hadn't happened overnight, and it certainly hadn't been easy. December 23, 1867, Delta, Louisiana. On a cotton plantation still scarred by the Civil War, a baby girl was born into a world that had no place for her dreams. Sarah Breedlove entered life as the first freeborn child in her family, but freedom was a cruel joke in the post-war South. Her parents, Owen and Minerva Breedlove, were former slaves who now worked as sharecroppers on the same plantation where they had once been property. The cabin where Sarah took her first breath had dirt floors, no windows, and walls that couldn't keep out the Louisiana winter. Her parents worked from sunrise to sunset in the cotton fields, earning barely enough to keep their family from starvation. But even in this desperate poverty, something extraordinary burned inside baby Sarah, a fierce determination that would become legendary. By age 4, Sarah was already working in the cotton fields alongside her parents and older siblings. Her tiny hands would bleed from picking cotton bolls, but she never cried. The other children called her different because while they played during their brief rest periods, Sarah would sit and watch the white plantation owner's wife, studying how she walked, how she spoke, how she carried herself with confidence and authority. That child got dreams too big for her station, the older women would whisper, shaking their heads. They had seen what happened to Black children who dared to imagine lives beyond the plantation. The world had ways of crushing such foolishness, but Sarah's mother, Minerva, saw something special in her youngest daughter and would secretly encourage her impossible dreams. Tragedy struck when Sarah was just 7 years old. A yellow fever epidemic swept through Louisiana in 1874, and both her parents died within weeks of each other. Suddenly, this little girl was completely alone in the world. Her older siblings had already left to find work elsewhere, and Sarah was left to fend for herself on a plantation where nobody wanted the burden of caring for an orphaned Black child. The plantation owner's solution was brutal. Sarah could stay if she worked for her keep. At 7 years old, she became a full-time field hand, working 14-hour days under the scorching Louisiana sun. She slept in the barn with the animals, ate scraps from the plantation kitchen, and wore clothes so tattered that they barely covered her growing body. Most children would have been broken by such treatment, but Sarah used the hardship as fuel. Late at night, when everyone else was asleep, she would sneak out and practice reading by moonlight, using torn pages from newspapers she found blowing around the plantation. She had somehow gotten hold of a few letters of the alphabet from a kind cook, and she would trace them in the dirt with a stick, determined to educate herself despite having no access to schools. At age 10, Sarah made a decision that would change her life forever. She refused to accept her circumstances any longer. She walked off that plantation with nothing but the ragged clothes on her back and began the long journey north to Vicksburg, Mississippi, where she had heard there were opportunities for young Black women to work as domestic servants in the city. The 60-mile journey took her 3 days on foot. She slept in ditches, begged for scraps of food, and dodged dangers that no 10-year-old should have to face alone. But when she finally reached Vicksburg, dirty and exhausted, Sarah Breedlove had already begun transforming into the woman who would one day become Madam C.J. Walker. What happened next would test her resilience in ways she never could have imagined. Vicksburg, Mississippi, 1878. 11-year-old Sarah Breedlove stood outside the mansion of a wealthy white family, her bare feet bleeding from the long walk through the city's cobblestone streets. She had come seeking work as a domestic servant, but what she found was a different kind of slavery. The white family took her in, but only as unpaid labor. She scrubbed floors until her knees were raw, washed dishes until her hands cracked, and slept on the kitchen floor with nothing but a thin blanket. For 3 years, Sarah endured this existence, growing into a teenager who had never known childhood. She was paid nothing, fed scraps, and treated worse than the family dog. But even in this darkness, she held on to her impossible dream. Someday, she would be free, not just from this house, but from poverty itself. At 14, Sarah made a desperate decision that would haunt her for years. She married Moses McWilliams, a man twice her age, not out of love, but out of survival. Marriage was her only escape from domestic servitude, and Moses promised her a better life. For a brief moment, it seemed like her luck had changed. Moses was a laborer who earned steady wages, and for the first time in her life, Sarah had her own home, a tiny shack, but it was hers. In 1885, their daughter Lelia was born, and Sarah felt a joy she had never experienced. Finally, she had someone to love and protect. She poured all her dreams into baby Lelia, determined that her daughter would have opportunities she had been denied. Sarah worked as a washerwoman, taking in laundry from white families, while Moses worked construction. They were poor, but they were building something together. But tragedy was lurking just around the corner. In 1887, when Lelia was just 2 years old, Moses McWilliams died suddenly. Some said it was an accident. Others whispered it was violence, that he had been killed by white men who didn't like seeing a Black man earning decent wages. Sarah would never know the truth, but the result was devastating. At 20 years old, she was a widow with a toddler and no way to support herself. This was rock bottom. Sarah had no family, no education, no skills except washing clothes, and a 2-year-old daughter depending on her for survival. Many women in her situation turned to prostitution. It was often the only way a Black woman could earn enough money to survive, but Sarah refused. Instead, she gathered up her few possessions, picked up baby Lelia, and made another desperate journey, this time to St. Louis, Missouri, where her brothers had found work. St. Louis in 1888 was a bustling river city with opportunities for Black women willing to work hard. Sarah found employment as a laundress, earning $1, $50 a day washing clothes for wealthy white families. It was backbreaking labor that required her to stand over steaming wash tubs for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Her hands became permanently stained and cracked from the harsh lye soap, and her back ached constantly from bending over the washing boards. But even worse than the physical pain was watching her hair fall out. The stress of widowhood, poverty, and exhaustion, combined with poor nutrition and harsh chemical treatments available to Black women at the time, had begun destroying her hair. Large bald patches appeared on her scalp, and she became increasingly self-conscious about her appearance. For 16 years, Sarah lived this grinding existence. She watched other women her age marry and find stability while she remained alone, afraid that no man would want a bald, poor washerwoman with a child. She watched wealthy white women parade through St. Louis in beautiful gowns and elaborate hairstyles while she hid her damaged scalp under head wraps. She had survived slavery, orphanhood, and widowhood, but this felt like a different kind of death, the slow killing of hope itself. Then, in 1904, something extraordinary happened that would change not just Sarah's life, but the lives of millions of women across America. St. Louis, Missouri, spring of 1904. After another grueling day bent over steaming wash tubs, 36-year-old Sarah Breedlove collapsed into bed in her tiny tenement apartment. Her hands were raw from lye soap, her back ached from hours of scrubbing, and most painfully, she had lost another clump of hair that morning. The bald patches on her scalp were spreading, and she felt her last shreds of dignity slipping away with each strand that fell. But that night, exhausted and broken, Sarah experienced something that would transform not just her life, but the beauty industry forever. As she drifted into sleep, a vivid dream came to her, more real than any dream she had ever experienced. A tall black man appeared before her, dressed in flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with otherworldly light. His presence filled her with a sense of peace she hadn't felt since childhood. "I have come to help you," the man said in a voice that resonated through her soul. He began showing her ingredients, herbs, roots, and oils that she had never seen before. With gentle hands, he demonstrated how to mix them in specific proportions, how to heat them to precise temperatures, how to create a formula that would not only stop hair loss, but promote healthy growth. "This is your gift," he whispered. "This is how you will lift yourself and your sisters." Sarah woke with a start, her heart pounding. The dream had been so vivid, so real, that she could still smell the exotic oils the mysterious man had shown her. Most people would have dismissed such an experience as the fantasy of an overworked mind, but Sarah felt something different. This wasn't just a dream. It was a revelation, a calling, a divine intervention in her desperate circumstances. For weeks, the dream haunted her. She found herself sketching the ingredients she had seen, trying to remember every detail of the formulas the man had demonstrated. She began researching in the city's black newspapers, reading about African traditional medicine and hair care practices that had been passed down through generations but lost during slavery. What she discovered amazed her. Many of the ingredients from her dream were real plants used for centuries in Africa to promote hair health. Using her meager savings, money that should have gone to food and rent, Sarah began purchasing ingredients. Sulfur, which she had seen in the dream, was known for its healing properties. Coconut oil, petrolatum, and various medicinal herbs could be found in St. Louis apothecaries. Working in her kitchen late at night after Lelia had gone to bed, Sarah began experimenting with different combinations, following the formula that had been revealed to her in the dream. The first attempts were disasters. Mixtures that burned her scalp, concoctions that smelled terrible, formulas that had no effect whatsoever. Sarah's neighbors thought she had lost her mind, staying up all night playing with potions when she should have been sleeping to prepare for another day of washing clothes. But Sarah pressed on, driven by a faith that this dream was more than mere fantasy. After months of experimentation, she finally created a formula that seemed promising. It was a thick, fragrant pomade that felt soothing on her damaged scalp. She began applying it religiously, massaging it into her scalp every morning and evening, praying that the mysterious man from her dream had indeed given her the key to her salvation. Slowly, miraculously, her hair began to grow. Not just grow, it flourished. The bald patches filled in with healthy, strong hair. The remaining damaged hair became lustrous and manageable. For the first time in years, Sarah could style her hair without embarrassment. She looked in the mirror and saw not a broken washerwoman, but a woman with dignity, beauty, and hope. Word spread quickly through St. Louis's black community. Women began asking Sarah what she had done to transform her hair so dramatically. When she shared her story and offered to make the formula for others, the demand was overwhelming. Here was something that actually worked, created by someone who understood their struggles because she had lived them herself. But creating a product that worked was only the first step. What Sarah needed next would require a leap of faith that would either make her fortune or destroy what little security she had built. St. Louis, 1905. Sarah Breedlove stood at the crossroads of her life, holding a jar of her miraculous hair formula in one hand and an eviction notice in the other. Word of her hair treatment's success had spread through the black community like wildfire, but making small batches for neighbors wasn't enough to pay the bills. She was still washing clothes 12 hours a day, her hands still cracked and bleeding, her future still uncertain. Then fate intervened in the form of Charles Joseph Walker, a newspaper advertising salesman who would change everything. C.J., as he was known, was a smooth-talking entrepreneur who immediately recognized the potential in Sarah's discovery. He had connections in the black press, understood marketing, and most importantly, he believed in Sarah's vision when no one else would. Their courtship was as much about business as romance. C.J. saw dollar signs in Sarah's formula, while Sarah saw the expertise she desperately needed to turn her kitchen experiments into a real business. When they married in January 1906, it wasn't just the union of two people. It was the birth of an empire. Sarah Breedlove became Sarah Walker, but more importantly, she became Madam C.J. Walker, a name that would echo through history. The transformation began immediately. C.J. taught Sarah the fundamentals of advertising, showing her how to write compelling copy that would appeal to Black women's deepest desires for beauty and dignity. Together, they crafted advertisements that didn't just sell hair care products, they sold hope, self-respect, and the promise of a better life. Before and after photographs showed dramatic transformations that seemed almost miraculous. But Sarah's genius lay not just in the product, but in understanding her market in ways that white-owned companies never could. She knew that Black women didn't just want their hair to grow. They wanted to feel beautiful, respected, and valued in a society that constantly told them they were inferior. Every jar of Madam Walker's Wonderful Hair Grower came with a message of empowerment that resonated far beyond cosmetics. In 1906, the Walkers made a decision that would either make their fortune or bankrupt them completely. They decided to leave St. Louis and take their business on the road, traveling throughout the South to demonstrate Sarah's products directly to potential customers. This was revolutionary and dangerous. A Black woman traveling through the Jim Crow South, claiming to be a successful businesswoman, was asking for trouble. But Sarah was undaunted. She and C.J. loaded their supplies into a wagon and began what would become an 18-month journey through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and beyond. At each stop, Sarah would set up demonstrations in Black churches, schools, and community centers. She would tell her story, from orphaned child to successful entrepreneur, and show women how her products could transform their lives too. The response was overwhelming. Women lined up for hours to buy her products, many spending money they could barely afford because they believed in Sarah's promise of transformation. But Sarah offered something even more valuable than beauty products. She offered opportunity. At each demonstration, she recruited local women to become Walker agents, teaching them to sell her products in their own communities. This wasn't just sales work. It was economic liberation. In an era when most Black women could only work as domestics or field hands for poverty wages, becoming a Walker agent offered the possibility of real income and independence. Successful agents could earn $5 to $10 per week, when most Black women made $2 to $3 per week in traditional jobs. By the end of 1907, the Walkers had established their headquarters in Denver, Colorado, chosen because it offered more opportunities for Black entrepreneurs than the South. Sarah had built a network of trained agents across multiple states, and orders were pouring in faster than they could fill them. The woman who had been washing clothes for $1, $50 a day was now earning hundreds of dollars per week. But success brought new challenges that would test Sarah's business acumen and force her to make decisions that would define her legacy forever. The bigger her business grew, the more enemies she made among white competitors who couldn't tolerate a Black woman's success. Denver, Colorado, 1908. From her new headquarters at 2114 Humboldt Street, Madam C.J. Walker was orchestrating a revolution. What had started as kitchen experiments had exploded into the fastest-growing Black-owned business in America. Orders poured in from across the country, dozens of letters daily from women begging for her products and opportunities to become Walker agents. But Sarah Walker wasn't content to simply fill orders. She had a vision that would transform the beauty industry forever. A nationwide network of trained, professional Black women who would build their own businesses while building hers. This concept was so revolutionary that even her husband, C.J., thought she was moving too fast, taking too many risks. The Walker method wasn't just about selling products. It was about creating an army of entrepreneurs. Sarah personally traveled to major cities across America, establishing Walker schools where women would spend weeks learning not just how to use the products, but how to run successful businesses. These weren't casual sales training sessions. They were intensive business academies that taught everything from bookkeeping to customer service to professional presentation. In Indianapolis, Sarah opened a state-of-the-art training facility that became known as the Harvard of hair care. Women came from as far away as the Caribbean and Central America to learn the Walker method. They paid their own travel expenses and tuition fees because they believed in Sarah's promise. I want to say to every Negro woman present, don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. Get up and make them. The business model was brilliant in its simplicity. Walker agents purchased products wholesale from the company, then sold them retail in their communities, keeping the markup as profit. But Sarah added revolutionary incentives. The most successful agents could recruit and train other agents, earning commissions from their sales too. This multi-level structure created opportunities for Black women to build substantial incomes in an era when most earned subsistence wages. By 1909, Walker's company employed over 1,000 women directly and supported thousands more through the agent network. Her products were sold in every major American city with a significant Black population. The Denver factory operated around the clock to keep up with demand, while Sarah's advertising campaigns in Black newspapers reached hundreds of thousands of potential customers weekly. But Sarah's genius extended beyond business operations. She understood that her success would be meaningless if she didn't use it to uplift her entire community. She began requiring her agents to contribute to local charities and educational institutions. Walker agents became pillars of their communities, using their economic independence to support churches, schools, and civil rights organizations. The financial results were staggering. By 1910, Sarah's personal income exceeded $1,000 per week, more than most white businessmen earned. Her company's annual revenues approached $100 an astronomical sum for any Black-owned business of that era. She owned real estate in multiple states, employed lawyers and accountants, and had become one of the most photographed Black women in America. Her success inspired a generation of Black women to believe in possibilities they had never imagined. Newspaper stories about Walker agents buying their own homes, sending children to college, and achieving financial independence spread hope throughout Black communities nationwide. Sarah had proven that entrepreneurship could be a weapon against oppression, that Black women could compete and win in American business. But this phenomenal success had attracted dangerous attention. White competitors who had initially ignored the Negro hairwoman were now genuinely threatened by her growing market share. Some launched competing products targeting Black women. Others spread malicious rumors about her formulas being dangerous or ineffective. A few took more sinister approaches, attempting to sabotage her supply chains and intimidate her agents. The most serious threat came from an unexpected source: other successful Black entrepreneurs who felt Sarah was moving too aggressively, drawing unwanted attention to Black business success in an era when such visibility could be deadly. 1911. The letter arrived at Madam Walker's Indianapolis headquarters on expensive stationery, bearing the letterhead of Poro Company, the largest Black-owned beauty business in America. It was signed by Annie Turnbow Malone, a woman who had built her own hair care empire and was not pleased with Walker's explosive growth. The message was clear. Sarah was moving too fast, taking too many risks, and threatening the delicate balance that allowed Black businesses to operate in white America. The tension between Walker and Malone represented more than business competition. It was a clash of philosophies about how Black entrepreneurs should navigate a hostile world. Malone believed in quiet success, building wealth gradually while avoiding attention that might provoke white backlash. Walker believed in bold action, public celebration of Black achievement, and using success as a platform for social change. But white competitors posed a far more serious threat. The Overton Hygienic Company, a white-owned business that had long dominated the Black beauty market with inferior products, suddenly launched an aggressive campaign to destroy Walker's reputation. They spread rumors that her products contained dangerous chemicals, that her training schools were fraudulent, that her success stories were fabricated, lies designed to trick desperate Black women. The attacks escalated when several white-owned newspapers published articles questioning how an uneducated Negro washerwoman could possibly have developed effective beauty products without stealing formulas from white chemists. Some suggested that Walker was merely a front for white businessmen who were the real brains behind her company. The racist implications were clear. Black people, especially Black women, were inherently incapable of such innovation and success. Walker's response was swift and devastating. Instead of hiding from the controversy, she embraced it. She invited journalists to tour her Indianapolis factory, showing them her modern equipment, her trained chemists, and her detailed production records. She provided testimony from thousands of satisfied customers and successful agents. Most importantly, she challenged her critics to produce any evidence supporting their accusations. The campaign reached its climax when a white beauty company executive publicly offered to pay $500 to anyone who could prove that Walker's products actually worked as advertised. It was meant to humiliate her, suggesting that her success was built on fraud. Walker's response became legendary in Black business circles. She immediately accepted the challenge and arranged for public demonstrations in major cities across the country. In Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Philadelphia, Walker personally conducted demonstrations before mixed-race audiences that included journalists, doctors, and skeptical competitors. She used her products on volunteers with damaged hair, documenting the before and after results with photographs. The transformations were undeniable, the testimonials genuine, and her critics were publicly embarrassed. But the white executive who had issued the challenge refused to pay the $500. Claiming the demonstrations were somehow rigged. Walker's response was characteristically bold. She sued him for the money in open court. The case drew national attention to Black business success, and Walker's refusal to be intimidated by white corporate power. Though she eventually dropped the lawsuit to avoid prolonged legal battles, she had made her point. She would not be silenced or sidelined. The controversy actually boosted Walker's business. Black customers, angered by the racist attacks on their successful sister, rallied to support her company. Sales increased dramatically as buying Walker products became an act of racial pride and solidarity. White attempts to destroy her had instead strengthened her connection to the Black community. Meanwhile, Walker continued expanding aggressively. She opened offices in New York City, established international operations in the Caribbean and Central America, and began planning the construction of a massive new factory in Indianapolis that would be one of the largest Black-owned manufacturing facilities in the world. By 1913, her empire employed over 3,000 people and generated more revenue than many white-owned corporations. She owned multiple properties, traveled in private railroad cars, and had become one of the most photographed and interviewed Black women in America. But success had come at a personal cost that was about to extract its final, devastating price. Villa Lewaro, Irvington-on-Hudson, New York, 1918. In her magnificent 34-room mansion overlooking the Hudson River, Madam C.J. Walker sat in her luxuriously appointed office, reviewing plans for her latest philanthropic venture. At 51, she had achieved everything she had dreamed of and more. Her business empire generated over $500,000 annually, employed thousands of women, and had transformed the beauty industry forever. But the relentless pace of building an empire had taken its toll. Years of constant travel, business stress, and fighting battles on multiple fronts had damaged her health. High blood pressure and kidney problems plagued her, yet she refused to slow down. There were too many causes to support. Too many women still needing opportunities, too many injustices still to fight. Walker had become far more than a businesswoman. She was a civil rights activist who used her wealth and platform to challenge American racism. She funded anti-lynching campaigns, donated thousands to Black colleges and universities, and supported the NAACP's legal efforts. When the East St. Louis race riots erupted in 1917, she organized a delegation of Black women to petition President Woodrow Wilson for federal action against racial violence. Her philanthropic vision extended beyond writing checks. Walker established beauty schools specifically to train Black women for professional careers, challenging the notion that they could only work as domestics or laborers. She funded scholarships for promising young Black students and supported orphanages for children who, like herself, had lost their parents at young ages. The Walker legacy was measured not just in dollars, but in transformed lives. Thousands of women had achieved financial independence through her business model. Entire families had been lifted from poverty because a mother or sister had become a successful Walker agent. Children had attended college on money earned through Walker products, and countless Black-owned businesses had been funded by Walker profits. On May 25, 1919, Madam C.J. Walker died at Villa Lawaro, just shy of her 52nd birthday. Her death made front-page news in Black newspapers across America and was noted even in white publications that had once dismissed her as an insignificant washerwoman. The woman born in a slave cabin had died as one of America's wealthiest self-made women. But Walker's true legacy wasn't her personal wealth. It was the empire she built and the doors she opened. Her daughter, Lelia, inherited not just a business, but a movement. The Walker Company continued operating for decades, employing generations of Black women and inspiring countless other Black entrepreneurs to believe that success was possible. Walker had proven that a Black woman could compete with anyone in American business. She had shown that entrepreneurship could be a weapon against oppression, that economic independence could fund social change, and that one person's success could lift an entire community. Her life story became a template that inspired future generations of Black women entrepreneurs, from Mary Kay Ash to Oprah Winfrey. The little girl who had picked cotton for pennies had built $1 million empire that proved what Black women could accomplish when given the chance. She had transformed herself from victim to victor, from washerwoman to millionaire, from nobody to somebody whose name would be remembered forever. The banker who had laughed at her in 1906 lived to see her featured on the cover of national magazines as one of America's most successful businesswomen. The plantation where she was born was eventually purchased by one of her companies and converted into a training facility for Black entrepreneurs. The woman they said couldn't run a business had built an empire that outlasted many of the white-owned companies that had tried to destroy her. Today, when we talk about Black entrepreneurship, women's economic empowerment, and the power of determination over circumstance, we are walking paths that Madam C.J. Walker carved with her bare hands. She didn't just build a business, she built a legacy of possibility that continues inspiring dreamers who refuse to accept limitations placed on them by others. If stories like this inspire you to learn about more forgotten pioneers who changed America, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss these incredible histories. Remember Madam C.J. Walker, the orphaned child who became America's first Black female millionaire, and proved that no dream is too big when backed by determination, faith, and relentless action.